Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name is Clint Button and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 170 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. All right, this is set up really well. I went ahead and pulled the dam off for most of it. There's still a little bit underneath to support this. And I've got, what I'm gonna do now is pull this armature and I'll have to put a dam here on the bottom portion, but then I can just line this with more paper. The armatures, a lot of this is personal preference. There's things that you'll do that other people don't do, and then there's other things that you'll copy because they're just a great idea. Some armatures, I did this one and these aren't necessarily secured. I'm going to see if I can just pull them right out or not. The books will show you to do the wire strings hanging with butterflies on the end to capturing your clay. It was pretty, there's some people that like to use aluminum wire and they'll wad it up around an armature, put a couple of nails or screws and twist it all around. I know I got a couple of models like that when I first started getting clay, and that was from like John Hanna, I believe. And see, this is just, I have a hole through the, I really don't remember what I got on the video. But there's a 2x4 that runs up through here, and I got it strapped on the top and then just in a hole in the bottom. You see, I can just slide that right out, and it works pretty well. Now, this is still supported by that armature in the middle, but it's going to be a little more of a juggling act to handle it now, simply because it's not I'll have to be careful on how I pick it up because I can't pick it up and have this central support. So we'll go ahead and just do a quick plug on these two holes and blend it in, and then I'll go ahead and dam this up. That's really all you got to do, and then I'm gonna like I said, this isn't critical because this is the top of the back of her head that's going to be 7.5, almost 8 feet off the ground, and the wings are going to be here, and so how much of this gets carved in great detail is nominal. I'm not going to spend a lot of time making sure that her hair is absolutely perfect back here. This will be blended pretty well and axed, but it's not like her face. Okay, so now we've got our last portion. We're going to go ahead and start working on this and just all Vaseline these up and just build this all up. I got to put a dam on the bottom around this line here, and then the rest of this, there's not enough draft. It should be able to come out, and I'll probably do at least, I might do one in the back here and then one on each, on the front, one over here, and if it'll work, I'll just do 3. So I'll get to putting this on and we'll see where it goes. As you progress, work your way around the model and everything, and you're putting your paper on, when you have a curve that you're going to put the paper around, and you're going to go let's see if we can do this, you're going to go around this curve. If you cut the paper off square, it sticks out like this. If you cut it on a bias or on a diagonal, you can put it on and it goes up a lot more, and you add a lot of material here. And then you take the next piece and this is how you cut it off. And you take the next piece when you're going around that curve and you flip it over, and it'll help cover that gap. And then when you're on the inside, of a curve, you turn them this other way. So they're like this and they overlap, and it helps give you better coverage. It's a little thing, but it really adds up. And you know, makes it a lot easier when you're, I always try to fit it and get it where I want it to be. And then if it's convenient, I'll put a bunch of Vaseline on there. And if it's not, I'll just pull the paper out. And that's my glue, okay? And then that glue, that Vaseline, will adhere to the paper, both the paper that I'm putting on right now and to the paper that I'm putting on the next time. It works really well. And a lot of times it's just as easy to cut the paper and let it run a little bit wild as it is to try to match all the little curves, because it's just, you know, like I said, you can do it, but this is a matter of doing as little as I possibly have to in order to get the result. And I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to make sure that I've got this absolutely super duper perfect. I want to make sure that I get the result and get done and I can move on, do the next one. And then sometimes you'll have a piece and it works just as well to get your bend just where you want it. Trim it right off, just make it fit. Because I'm sure that there's, I don't know. When I was doing this, when I was being taught, and you take your clay, especially when you're doing a waste mold, and we would do what I'm doing now with pieces of flashing, like little thin pieces of aluminum, or usually aluminum because it doesn't rust. And try to make it, and if it doesn't quite stick, put some more on there, because gravity is going to win. And so the goal is to get this together as quick as I can so I can hurry up and put a little bit of silicone on this. And make it stick so I can get it in shape. All right, just keep fiddling with it. I should probably add, when you get to the corners, try to have a piece of paper that goes around the corner, that really to fold it to make your nice intersection. Because if you can make a good intersection, it'll help you later on when you cast it. And you got to watch to make sure that you don't have gaps where the paper like see right here in this corner. I'm going to go ahead and put a nice crease so I can try to get a really good intersection that's pretty tight right there. But if you have gaps where the silicone, as you're building your mold, where your silicone can grab the other side, then you have to cut them apart. And that's not a problem. You just have to understand when you're unmolding it that you may have to separate this somewhere where it may have you may have inadvertently glued one side to the other, because if you just pull it and tear it, then that can become a problem. And you don't have to trim the edges off. It just looks more professional if you do. And if you're like me, you know, those little details can add up just as a personal thing. It just looks better. Having your paper, you know, fold up several sheets at a time so that you can have a really nice, all your mise en place is ready. All your prep is just sitting there waiting for you. And then you can just move forward. And patch it up as you need to. If you end up with a gap somewhere that you weren't anticipating, just fix it. And it'll end up looking great. All right, get comfortable here. We're done with the basic setup of the divisions. Have everything, you know, all the walls, dams, you know, partitions, whatever you want to call them. We've got this divided up, and I've got, I think there's a couple coats on this first one, but these other ones are still just one coat. They're not, you know, perfectly airtight gaps. They're really close. They'll be fine for what we're doing. It's always possible to put a little bit of clay on a seam if it's a problem, you know, if you got big gaps. But for the most part, these gaps are all really good. This should separate well. I didn't see any big protrusions where the silicone went past the paper. And like I said, it's real common if you're doing a waste mold, you literally, if you're trying to do a removable mold, you're going to have to split it and take it apart somehow. And so, you know, if it's a full round, to be able to evacuate it. So, you know, even with the waste mold, you know, the way I was taught, we would still do partitions on full round stuff, and this would all be done with flashing. But this is, let me set the camera back up. I just wanted to show you. I tried to follow, you know, it had a good place to divide it here at the bottom of the cuff, because this cuff comes down through right here just a little bit. Then there's a hole behind her hand. So this piece is going to come out, and then this piece should come out, and then the back piece should come out without any trouble. Well, let me set the camera back up and explain a couple other things I want to bring up. When you're setting this up, it's really important to understand draft and how a mother may, or even a mold, how it would grab on here and lock into place mechanically, because when you filled it with plaster, the plaster mother actually, instead of being on the outside of it, actually went, and there was draft, or there was an overhang where it would lock it into place, and that could be a real problem. One of the reasons I like doing, and so you have to think about it a lot. There were, you know, over the years you see stuff and you want to have it in the studio, and you want to, you know, you want to get it, and you can't afford it, because it just, that's the way the world is at that point. You may not have an extra, you know, you may not have an extra $20 to buy anything, because you don't. And we had a lot of lean years. We had some really, this is not just, I'm trying to find a place to spend money kind of business. This is, you have to really manage what you're doing. And especially, if there's slow times, like the long delays around COVID to get this stone, or the things we ran into with just work in general, trying to start a studio, trying to explain to people what could be done. And but you can study things even if you can't afford to buy them. And it's good to look at how molds are made, because there was a time when people, they didn't have silicone. They had to use plastic. And if they wanted a reusable mold, they had to really figure out their parting lines really well, so that everything would separate, come across. And it was common to see a parting line, along the jaw, to where this would come out separately, so that this was like you could have a really nice open piece here that would lift out, so that you wouldn't have anything locked with the face, because the face, you may have a parting line down the center. If you have any draft here by the temples, it would lock in place. So you may have where they wanted the line, they wanted it to be nice. The parting line may go around the face. They may have a parting line down the center of the nose. So you really have to study that. When you start doing, silicone, when you're doing rubber molds, that kind of disappears in certain ways, because I can go in here and do my rubber, make it the way I want, and then I can go into all these potential spots that will key before I make my rubber thick and stiff. See, I don't want to do that and make this, a ½ inch thick and make it really stiff. I can leave it fairly thin. Then I can go in and I can block this in with foam. And I can put foam all around the edge of her face, so that all of this is tapered, all of this is sloped, and it's not gonna lock in place. And it's a whole lot easier and faster to do it with foam than it is to do it with a solid mold, that you've got to figure out where to break it, where to cut it, in order to eliminate draft. Because to get nice 3D work, you're going to have all kinds of draft. It's going to be there. And so, and if you turn ahead, or you tip ahead, you tip ahead forward or back or rotate it, you're going to have draft in different places on the same figure. You could do the same figure of Christ or Mary or your cousin Fred or whoever. And if you move that head in certain ways, there's going to be draft in different places that you're going to have to account for. And it's a sick feeling when you go to pull that off and it isn't moving, and you've got to go in there and cut that mold away in order to get it to let go. So hopefully it doesn't stress or fracture your positive, because that's the end goal. If the mold has to go away. But then if you put all this time and effort into doing a nice mold that you could potentially reuse, and you break it, you wasted a lot of money. Doing the draft like this is another reason that I like this flowable, this silicone that isn't flowable, that you're not putting in a container and then casting it like you do with the way they recommend for the regular 2-parts. Because the 2-part, really nice, expensive silicone that I use, it'll flow like water. I mean, not quite like it'll flow like honey easily. And so you put it on and you let it set, and it'll just pull itself down to be a paper thin coating. And you sort of have to play with it if you're trying to get a thin layer, because otherwise it will create draft that you got to figure out how to compensate for as that silicone is soft. Here I can just take a chunk of foam and start putting it in, and I can block all these in, keep this super flexible. And I have to put some keys in order to lock this into my mother. I've not had any success that I trust with complicated work, where you could embed something in the silicone, like you could put a bunch of that chop, like I used to strengthen the mother, a bunch of fiber or whatever for to stick up to cast the plaster to it, so that this is integral. Because when you pull this and you pull that mother off, it has to let go of that plaster more easily than those little fibers tear, because once those fibers tear, you're going to have fractures in your rubber, and they're never going to lay down flat, and it's going to essentially stretch this, and then that's going to protrude into your positive when you cast it, and you're going to have depressions in that. So I'll put some blocks on here like I showed in earlier videos, and then we'll be able to pop the mother off and then unmold it, and then take this and put it back. I'm going to have to go over this and smooth this up a little bit, because a lot of these rough spots aren't ideal. I'll put another couple layers, on these sections here in the back and the bottom, just enough to hold it up, make it a little more durable, because these should all come off pretty easy. There isn't any detail. There's nothing to trap it or to capture it like there is on the front. And and this is just, a little aesthetic stuff for me. I want to make this mold kind of flat on the bottom, when it comes out, and hopefully it'll, I'll just see, but I've just got those holding it up, and but I'm pretty pleased with the way it's coming out. So I don't think the videos we still got a bit, so I'll do some more work, and probably start on it and be back in a little bit. All right, but it's quitting time for the day, so we'll let this set overnight really well and get at least one more layer on all of these thin spots, because these are all just one layer. Right now I'm at 11 tubes of silicone. Okay, so I've got this is number 12 right here. Okay, so this represents about $100 of silicone. Okay, because we figured out a case, at $10, 9 something a case, and there's 12 of them. It's right at $100, a little more than $100. So we'll call that good, and but that gives you an idea on what this costs, because we're not done yet. So we'll have, I don't know if there'll be half a case, probably at least half a case, and that will make it. That'll give you an idea on what this costs to do if you want to try it. So keep your stuff cleaned off. This will build up on your little piercing needle, whatever, piece of wire. It's just a piece of copper wire I use, so that it's I can do my tube of silicone with it. You'll find that you'll buy a really cheap caulking gun, and the dirt cheap ones will often have a wire on them for piercing the silicone, for piercing the tape on the tube, and they'll also have a shear in here so you can stick the tube in and cut it. If you had a little sheet metal handle with a round hole right here at the hinge that you can see through, and then you pull it and you can't, all it is to cut the tube off. You just put it in there and chop it off, and then you can take the tube and you swing the little wire out and do it to poke a hole. If you buy a nice tube, a nice caulking gun, they don't have that. Doesn't make any sense to me. But, and then for the night, I've got the tip that I cut off here, and I'm just gonna find a good place to wipe this off. Oh, I saw a thin spot. Yeah, right there. Just wipe that off. Take your tip, put it right back inside the tube, then mash it all the way in there. And that's the best way that I've found to keep the silicone from drying. I don't know why it works so well for that, but there it goes. It'll stay right there. And that'll stay in there, and that tube will be fantastic. It'll last longer doing that than anything I've tried. Okay, and I've tried all kinds of different internet gimmicks or tricks, and we bought the screw-in stuff that is supposed to be really great, you know, little screw-in things. We tried the wire nuts and all that. Nothing's kept the silicone as fresh as taking the tip you cut off. That's why you always save it. And then when you start the next tube, you throw it away and save the tip from that you cut off of the tube. And then you stab it back in there and squeeze it all the way in, and it's going to be the best result. So, all right, let's see how this looks after the magic video. I gotta go cook supper. I'll be back. All right, well, I went and started doing the edit and putting the video together, and you know, we're 26 minutes, so there's not going to be enough time to do a whole lot with more on this video, so we'll just make this one, you know, a little bit short. I know as I always say, I'm going to keep this one from being short. It ends up being 5 minutes longer than, you know, it goes up into the 30-minute range. And, you know, appreciate y'all watching. I don't want to wear you out. So, but anyways, we'll wrap this up for the day and start again tomorrow. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with a Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.